The second part of my Philippines visit would be a tour to the islands, or at least some of them, as they number over 1,000. The first part of the journey was a day-long bus ride to Legazpi. I said goodbye to Dave, who had travelled with me in the north, but was then headed for China. Legazpi was the town from where we could view the famous Mayon volcano, but the day that I was there it was covered in cloud. This is the ruin of a church destroyed by an eruption in 1814 that killed over 1,400 people. While in Legazpi I met up with another backpacker who agreed to join me on my island tour, and we set off by local transport to the south of Luzon Island, where we would catch a ferry to Samar Island. This is typical of the transport that we travelled on. The next day we continued our tour south through the islands of Samar and Leyte. We spent a night at Tacloban and then continued south to Masin, where we were to catch the ferry for Mindanao. This is the Asia China, the ship that would take us overnight to Butuan on Mindanao. From Butuan we set off by bus at around 6 o'clock the next morning and arrived at Balingoan, the departure point for the ferry to Camigan, by 8 o'clock. The crossing to Camigan took a couple of hours, but the sea was calm and it was pleasant to sit on deck enjoying the cool sea breeze. We arrived at Benoni Jetty and then took a bus up the east coast to arrive at Mambahaw, the island's capital, although not much larger than a village. Our accommodation was at Mrs. Tia's guest house, a delightful house built in the Spanish colonial period. Mambahaw was beautiful and tranquil, and we started off exploring the town. This is the War Memorial. The town boasted a large school, and we noted how clean and tidy the children were every time that we saw them. Going to school was still seen as a privilege. Mambahaw was right on the coast and boasted several fine beaches offering some excellent swimming, although we were warned to watch out for sharks. The sharks didn't deter us from swimming in the sea, and there were some excellent alternatives, such as the swimming hole beneath the Katipuasan waterfalls, a long but beautiful walk into the jungle. From our guest house, the route took us a short way down the main road and past the blacksmith's shop. We also passed the small building site, where work went on at a pace suitable for the climate, and the men were only too pleased to stop and chat with us. A short distance down the main road, we turned off into a lane that led off through the trees and rice paddies. We passed just a single house about 5 minutes from the main road, after which there were no signs of habitation. Here we can see 2 of the 7 volcanoes that form the island of Camigan. Fortunately they are now dormant. And here are the Katipuasan Falls, falling over 100 feet into a man-made lagoon created by the locals to form a swimming hole. Another excursion took us to one of the hot springs, and on the way we got a glimpse of yet another volcano. Here the locals were building a huge bath to enable visitors to bathe in the hot spring water. Yet another excursion was to White Island. That involved a ride in a motor tricycle taxi to the village of Agaho, and then negotiating with one of the fishermen to take us to the island in his boat. The island is nothing more than a sand spar, but of the whitest sand, and a pleasant place from which to take a swim. By far our longest excursion was with our host's husband, Mr. Tia, who was also the island's tax inspector. He asked if we would like to join him on an official all-day tour around the island, and we gratefully accepted. We passed through many of the island's towns and villages, including Gwynziliban. Further down the road we found a Christian cemetery. The local people had been converted to Christianity by the Spanish, and there were churches dotted around the island. This is the village of Benoni, where we had landed on the island. The road continued along the coast, and we were treated to many beautiful views of the sea. At one place on the southern tip of the island, we stopped at this coconut plantation. On the west coast we found several ruins. This church was almost totally destroyed by a volcanic eruption, but had saved the lives of the many people who had sheltered inside it. We continued along the west coast past several small fishing villages. Near the last one we were dropped off to bathe in hot springs that emerge into the sea, before making our own way back to Mambaho.